Hello everybody. This recorded presentation aims to analyze and give our own view about one of the most famous tax evasion scandals of the recent decades, the so-called Swiss leaks, which was set up by the Swiss subsidiary of HSBC and which was released by the notorious whistleblower Hervé Falciani. Without any transition, let's move on to our roadmap. We will firstly present the case study in a few words. Secondly, we will identify the different stakeholders involved in that scandal. Thirdly, we will tackle the standards and principles of the CFA Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct which were violated. Fourthly, we will try to update last year's presentation in accordance with today's situation. And finally, we'll go further by applying the conception of ethics by Payne and Hale to this assignment and by giving our own additional inputs. To start with, let's describe the framework in which such a scandal occurred. The scandal concerned, as you probably know, a huge tax evasion system. The central players were the Swiss subsidiary of HSBC and Hervé Falciani, to whom we will come back in more details further in the presentation. This tax evasion mainly happened between 2006 and 2008, and the location of the case has, for the major part, to be found in Switzerland, but also in Nice, Madrid, and more astonishingly, Beirut. As far as the timeline is concerned, let's quote a few key dates and key events. In 2005, the Europe and European Parliament thinks about a bill over savings for well-off people. HSBC already reflects about a means to be able to attract some rich clients who would want to escape from such a scheme. In 2006, Hervé Falciani seemingly warns his superiors about the dangers of the data management of the firm, which would still conditionally, we insist upon that, foster tax evasion. He is nevertheless asked to keep quiet and do his work in the IT department. Between 2006 and 2008, as a reaction, Hervé Falciani intentionally collects some private data over more than 100 clients which deal with HSBC in Geneva. The company soon discovers his actions and alerts Swiss authorities. In December 2008, he feels the wind in his neck. We are speaking about the Swiss authorities, and he steals 3 hard disks which contains intimate data over customers and corporations of HSBC in Switzerland. As a reminder, this material is clearly property of the bank under the CFA code. In January 2009, he ran away in France and he is arrested in Nice, where he had found refuge at his parents'. In July the same year, he collaborates with French authorities, which deny his extradition in Switzerland. Why? Because he provided more names and his list was very close to the one that the tax authorities drew in France after having run their own investigation. He therefore earns credibility everywhere in the world. Simultaneously, France asks its citizens to declare their revenues and earnings with delay through a late declaration operation. The deal was for clients to incur a financial penalty in exchange for no further juridical prosecution. In 2012, he follows his, let's say, trip in Spain, where he got contacts to better exploit the data he collected between 2006 and 2008. Like France, Spain denies his extradition in Switzerland, but is finally acquitted. Actually, he was suspected of having tried to sell the data he had gathered at Audi SA Bank in Lebanon, where he ran a few years ago. Today, his trial should have begun, but he is determined not to show up, so he was absent. The Swiss justice still tries to judge him and give evidence of his culpability, which clearly threatened the reputation of the country. As you all have understood, the case has been developing over a long time and is still uncertain today. What you mainly have to keep in mind is the following question. Is Falciani a good intended whistleblower, or is he only a good skilled computer scientist which looked for easy money? Pierre-Yves will now give you more details about the way the company operated during the scandal.
So now I'm going to deal with the modus operandi. So first of all, in 2005, the Europe created a new European tax law on savings. Therefore, HSBC sent letters to all his clients, and in these letters, HSBC told its clients that they have created a tax evasion scheme in order to avoid this new European tax law on savings. There are two possibilities. Either the client of HSBC contact the bank and they meet in Geneva, or the HSBC bank contact the other clients that have a minimum 1 million euro to save and meet each other in France in a hotel, for example. Then HSBC will create a numbered profile for a client. Here this is Sir Smith, and will give Sir Smith accounts associated to this numbered profile. And HSBC will usually give more than one account in order to increase the level of opacity of the transaction. Then Sir Smith will transfer the 1 million euro to those accounts. Then HSBC will create a numbered profile to Sir Smith. So Sir Smith does not exist anymore in the database of HSBC, and he becomes the client X07865. And this client X becomes the account holder of these three accounts. Then HSBC will create a moral person in order to increase again the level of opacity of the transaction, and will create this moral person in a fiscal paradise in Panama. And the client X will becomes the attorney of these three accounts. And subsequently, the client X and therefore Sir Smith will have full access to these three accounts without having any problem with the fiscal authorities of his country. Now I will give you some key data. So this huge tax evasion scheme concerns more than $180 billion in total. In Belgium, it concerns more than 6 billion euro. Hervé Falciani disclosed confidential data over more than 100,000 clients. In France, it disclosed more than 600 accounts, accounts, but only 6 of these accounts were official. It means that only 6 account holder declare these accounts to the French authorities. And in the US, HSBC Bank were fined for more than $1.9 billion.
Let's now go through the different stakeholders which were part of the scandal. We consider that the major and influential players of that business case are three. Firstly, HSBC at all power and decision levels. Secondly, the management team, but rather at the Swiss entity. because they should have had direct oversight of the different activities there. Thirdly, Hervé Falciani as an individual, which was an IT engineer and a sensitive data managing person. In opposition with the former presentation, we decide to concentrate on the global network rather than only on Hervé Falciani's individual considerations and actions. The first big player is, according to us, HSBC. HSBC is one of the biggest banks in the world and in Europe. Headquarters are located in London, and the bank has a strong agent regime overall in Hong Kong and Shanghai. To come back to this particular case, the action took place at the Swiss subsidiary of HSBC in Geneva and in a specific department, the Global Private Banking activity. We assume that you all know the different guidelines of the first standard of CFA Code of Ethics. Let's get to the heart of the matter directly. We already mentioned that Maxime, so last year's student, didn't tackle the involvement of the corporation, neither at the HQ level nor at the local level. According to us, HSBC violated the points C and D of the first standard. For point C, because they willingly attracted people by offering them fraudulent product, such as financial structures and instruments to enable tax evasion. So they broke the trust on which is based the investment profession. For point D, because they purposely designed an international system which favored and even expanded tax evasion. It was a huge damage to the whole profession, and they broke the professional reputation. Pierre-Yves will now focus on the second stakeholder.
So the second stakeholder is supervisors. So the supervisors are the management of HSBC. Here you can find an organization chart that depicts the HSBC structure. So first you have the headquarters in London, then the Swiss subsidiary. This subsidiary is divided in 4 major departments. First of all, you have the retail banking and wealth management, then the investment banking, the commercial banking, and finally the global private banking. Here we are going to focus on the global private banking department, and more precisely on the IT support department where Hervé Falciani used to work. And in 2006, Hervé Falciani was developing a program to ease fiscal evasion, but he reported to his supervisor the supervisor of the global private banking department to tell them that it was completely illegal. However, his supervisor denied his warnings. So we believe that the supervisor of Hervé Falciani have violated the standard number 4, duties to employers. I will not review the guidelines that you all know. So according to us, the supervisors have violated the standard number 4, point C, because he denied warnings from subordinates. Here it is Hervé Falciani. Supervisor didn't report promptly to headquarters, or at least to the top management of the Swiss subsidiary. And eventually, the supervisor was in fact personally involved in the fraud.
Let's now try to understand more accurately who is and what did Hervé Falciani. He's an IT engineer who studied in France. He started to work for HSBC in 2001, and he personally considers that our society should reduce population suffering by better optimization of resources, including financial resources. As we already reviewed the principle of the first standard, let's handle the ethical concepts that Hervé Falciani didn't take into account and even more rejected. Together with Maxime, we share the opinion that Hervé Falciani violated the principle about the knowledge of the law by intentionally stealing the material officially owned by his employer. In possession of these hard disks, he was able to divulge the private data he wanted to make public, so he couldn't have acted without the material he stole. Like you all know, theft is strongly sentenced by the CFA Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. And even if banking secrecy may be seen as tricky in Switzerland, it's another story in other European countries, and Hervé Falciani should have complied with stricter rules. In other words, an end doesn't justify the means overall for the CFA Institute. The second standard we would like to concentrate upon is duties to client, which underlies the guidelines that you already have studied. Last year, and potentially still today, Maxime thought that Falciani acted against his client's interests because he didn't keep the personal information confidential and revealed publicly the fact that they were wrongdoers. To us, he was, on the contrary, even if not obligated, he was allowed to disclose those pieces of information because fraud was clearly suspected. And according to the CF Institute, it is a recommendation to act this way and to reveal confidential data if illegal activities are demonstrated. The third and last standard, which is related to Hervé Falciani's behavior, is the one which covers duties to employer. Last year, Maxime noted that Hervé Falciani violated the loyalty to his employer by making sensitive information public and by triggering a reputational backlash to HSBC. In our shoes, we observe the action of Hervé Falciani as more acceptable. He should have whistleblown because the conditions were met. The conditions are specified in the CFA Code of Ethics. Firstly, he had serious evidence of fraud. Secondly, he firstly tried to talk to the management of the firm and the national tax authorities before getting into contact with other communities such as the press and the different media. Moreover, he didn't act for personal gain, and his goal was clearly to protect the integrity of the market and the profession. Pierre-Yves will now zoom in on fairness and confidentiality principles.
So in this case, fairness and confidentiality principles are clearly linked together. First of all, fairness. In fact, Falciani fairness thought is to optimize resources to reduce population suffering, which is close to the Marxist fairness thought, which is resources allocation to each according to his needs. And in fact, to reach his fairness thought, Falciani had to disclose confidential information. And the core principles of ethics code tell us that you can disclose confidential information only if it is useful and only if it serves the common good.
To go a bit further, we would like to draw a parallel between the CFA Code of Ethics and the conception of ethics by Payne and Hale, which was published in the Harvard Business Review under the Global Business Standard Codex. So let's speak about the citizenship principle, which puts in the light of the reflection the juridical but also moral obligation of citizens to pay taxes. Obviously, some HSBC clients forgot about that principle. Then the responsiveness principle, which relies on people and their social and economic collaboration to fight bribery and corruption. We figured out that Hervé Falciani worked definitely in cooperation with other communities, such as journalists and other whistleblowers, to make the release of sensitive information like he did more secure for them. The idea is to favor that cooperation, to strive for a better society without, or at least with less, bribery and corruption. Eventually, the dignity principle, which was risen up by Payne and Ale, it demands to go further than companies' interests and asks the employees of the industry, whatever its nature, to deeply think about their own actions and to watch their behavior with an open eye in order to respect people. That's clearly what Hervé Falciani did by setting the interests of his employer and his clients below or behind the interests of the public audience and the moral dimension of the industry. Pierre will now carry on.
Well, we would like to bring subjective criticism. In fact, we conducted additional research and found out other similar cases. Well, a former case in Liechtenstein, in fact, with Heinrich Kieber, who disclosed confidential information and reported to the fiscal authorities of his country and received in exchange 4 million euro. And secondly, we would like to point out the fact that Hervé Falciani wrote a book about the scandal. And related to those points, we ask ourselves whether Hervé Falciani followed a commercial purpose by releasing confidential information. And finally, what's disturbing in this case is the disclosure of a partial list by the group of journalists that led this investigation with the following process. They, in fact, they disclosed only the name of people with societal liability, of people considered as rich, and of people financially able to defend themselves. And it leaves large room for interpretation. Today, there is a trial in Geneva against Hervé Falciani on November 2, 2015. But Hervé Falciani decided to not show up and will resort to the European Court of Human Rights if a prosecution remains against him. And Hervé Falciani is trying today to create a whistleblower platform to foster other whistleblower when they detect a scandal or a fraud. Well, let's summarize what we bring in addition to the former presentation. First of all, we focused on the network rather than solely on Hervé Falciani. We describe the modus operandi. We bring key data and figures over the case. We describe the situation, today's situation, and we bring subjective criticism of the case. Thank you for your attention, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation. Here you can find our references.